started. All right, it's recording now. But
Okay.
anyways, what's going on, man? How you doing?
So, well, so I've been doing good. I officially separated almost a little over 3 months back in September 9th.
Okay.
I was on the skill bridge from April until June, and then I was on terminal. And so that was an awesome opportunity in itself.
Yeah.
Just being able just to leave just a little bit earlier. And me being maintenance, every day counts. It's just like
Yeah.
you're just marking on like the prisoner's wall, like how many more days do I have until I'm able to leave? So I was really, really excited to actually like leave the military and get out.
No,
So
I understand totally. Well, before we get into it, you want to introduce yourself?
yeah, so I'm Mikkel, and I'm 9 year Air Force veteran. That's weird to say. I was an aircraft structural technician. I was a maintainer for airplanes, stationed in Minot, Guam. Then I was also stationed in McConnell for the very end, totaling out at 9 years. Like I said, I was able to use the SkillBridge program for about 3.5, 4 months, and then use my terminal leave on my way out. So now I got out and I work at Bombardier. And so I'm unfortunately and fortunately still in the maintenance field. So I still absolutely.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So you mentioned that how many years again you said you were in the Air Force for?
So I did 9 years.
9. And so did you start off with a 4 year or a 6 year contract?
So I started off with a 6 year contract, and then I was in Minot, and why not Minot?
Yeah.
About 3.5 years in 2017, I got the notification for orders, and
Yeah.
but I had to extend for 2 more years.
Oh my
And I
gosh,
thought
yeah.
to myself at that age, I was like,
Why
two
not?
years really isn't that bad. And then it was like, what's 8 years? And then
Yeah.
Guam happened. And then for me to go to McConnell, I had to extend another year just so I could
Yeah.
separate from the States.
Oh
So,
yeah.
so I decided to do that.
That's cool though, because you extended and then you went to Guam, right?
Yeah.
That's what happened. And then it's where you met your wife,
Yep.
right? That's all,
Exactly.
things
So
kind of
yeah,
worked out there.
yeah, it's crazy. Of all places, in Guam is where I would meet
Yeah.
my wife.
And
So
that's where we met, right? I think I helped you out a
yeah,
few
yep,
times, pet
absolutely.
quarantine,
Yeah,
I finance and all that.
yeah. Actually, funny enough about that too. I met my wife. She was part of the in processing, and I'll
Yeah.
never forget. And I always speak to it is that when I went in there to try and file my voucher, uh, my wife was very, very cut dry. Like, what? No, these dates don't match up. How many days did you use? And I'm like, I don't know how many days I used. Like, just take it. She's like, no, no, it just
I
doesn't make sense.
I do remember you being like, yeah, he was helping me, right? That guy.
Yeah, I was like, please, yeah, no, him, please. She's like, no, he wasn't. I was helping him. Like, okay, little did
Oh,
I
that's so
know she was
funny.
she was gonna be my wife.
That's so awesome. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that experience on Guam is just it seems like a freaking dream, man. Like it just like in a snap, it's all over, And
Yeah.
you probably like get it like at the time you're probably just like I can't wait to get out of here. I can't wait to like
Yeah.
finish what I'm doing and then move on. And it seems days feel like weeks and it
Mhm.
seems so long. And then in retrospect, it's just like, where the hell did time go? It's
Yeah,
like you
it just
gotta,
all.
yeah, it's so crazy. And so after you transitioned, or at least I kind of wanted to hit on that last month you were in,
Mhm.
kind of this video, guys, so I can kind of give you kind of I guess an overview of what we're going to kind of go over to. It's just like obviously his background, but also that transitionary period, kind of what I'm in right now. But that last month, from the last month he was in active duty, wearing the uniform, how that the how TAP went, the transitionary phase, that whole period of going through the appointments and workshops and whatever else you had to do, and then after the fact starting that skill bridge program. Did want to get into how was the company that you ended up with on the DoD website, or did you have to go out and find them and reach out to them? And then obviously you said you ended up with the same company. And then how
Different company.
the different company, sorry.
Yeah.
And then how that process has been like so far. I mean, being kind of relatively still fresh from the transitionary phase. So, yeah, so that first one, how was that I guess last 60 to 90 days, um, from taking off that uniform? How was that for you?
It was very stressful.
Yeah,
Just because it was my whole upbringing. My father was military for about 22 years. So my
yeah,
entire life is a lot of moving, a whole lot of moving parts to where now it's like officially taking off the uniform. It was an entire life change. Like my entire life is all military. So it was very scary. I really worried a lot that that wasn't gonna make it per se.
yeah,
I had not so great leaders in some of my time that were, kind of always trying to like the crab in a barrel mentality. They
yeah,
didn't like to see, younger airmen or young NCOs, get out, or guys who could possibly be taking their job. They didn't like that.
yeah,
So for that last 30 to 60 days in before the skill bridge, it was just a lot of, I mean, honestly, it was just a lot of negativity, and it was really just trying to talk to as many people as I could within my area, be able to talk to as many airmen as I could, being like, use your education benefits, use your Air Force cool, do not play around, get this
yeah.
done. This 6 years, 8 years is going to go by so fast. Please
Hmm.
do not sleep on this because
Yeah,
everyone else does. There are master sergeants and higher enlisted, who just didn't do anything. I mean, hey, more power to you. That's great.
yeah,
But the thing is that times are changing. If
yeah,
you plan on staying in and you want to make rank, you need to have the education. You need to
yeah,
have the backing. You need to know how to use the system, because how are you expected to rise to the ranks when they're changing all these prerequisites?
yeah.
You can't
No,
do it now because I never went to
that's
school, right?
no, yeah, totally. That's so, I relate to that so much now. So my last 6 months in the Skill Bridge program, I did about 5 months. One big thing that stuck out to me and was pretty much placed in my face was like, okay, do you have your degree? And
Yeah.
right, it's like, oh, everybody here has a degree in financial services. I'm the only one without a degree. I'm the only one with an associate's, the business
Mm-hmm.
administration, and that's like nothing to these guys. And even
Mm-hmm.
though I had all this Air Force experience, all this military experience, all this financial management experience, it really didn't matter or apply. And in all honesty, the skills, I mean, only maybe 25% of the actual skills that I actually learned in the military transitioned over. Everything else was
Right.
just like OJT, right? On the job training type of
Mm-hmm.
thing. And that's a big one for these guys, because a lot of people, and I was one of them, when I was getting ready to transition, maybe about a year out, I was like, I think I'll be fine. These guys, I assumed that a lot of companies or whatever would really value, and maybe they'll really value my military experience and kind of put that above a degree or in lieu of a degree. But in reality, it's like, it's nice that you have this background, it's nice that you have
Mm-hmm.
all this experience, but you also need the other qualifications on
Yeah.
top of that. If you have that plus the military, it makes you a great combination. Makes you a
Yeah.
perfect package above the next guy. But
Yeah.
whatever reason, you need this other half, which is
Mm-hmm.
something that I learned the hard way too myself, right? And
Yeah.
another one you mentioned too was the transitionary for people who've been in for a while, not preparing, because it's not just their education and whatever certifications, it's also money, right?
Yeah.
It's
That's also.
not, because it's like, okay, you're out, but now you're not getting a steady paycheck. Not to mention the move going from one base to your wherever location you end up being at, and that all the expenses that come with that. But also just not knowing if you're going to make any money in the future. I mean, you have the GI Bill if you're still going to go to school, but you don't
Mm-hmm.
have, an extra whatever it is, 2 grand coming in every 2 weeks.
Right.
And how much money do you have in your nest egg? How much money do you have put away to the side so that you can you're not stressing for about, however long it needs you to be for finding a job, right? And did you
Right.
kind of meet people like that?
So as far as like whenever I was in TAPS, I never, I don't think I really met. I think I got the group where it was just like all officers. Everyone was just like,
Oh,
oh, I have a psychology degree. Oh, I'm a physicist. And I'm just like, sounds great. I'm just a maintainer. See you guys later. So so I didn't really deal with that too much, but it was definitely some thought had to go into that, for my family and what how much money do we need? Do we need it? Thankfully Emily was able to stay in and continue serving.
yeah,
So I'm covered on that front of it. But had I not had her to kind of crutch on while I'm still actively looking for a job, it definitely would have been way more scary. But when finances come into it, I think there's a big like stigma. When you get out of the military, a lot of people set themselves up on this new pedestal, if you will, or this new line to where it's they won't ever do a job below what they deem is below them. If it meant going to work at McDonald's for a few months just to be able to make some money, or Target
yeah.
or whatever,
I see what you mean.
just income at all. But
Yeah,
people will be like, no, no, can't do that.
yeah.
Well, what are you going to do?
You,
You're going to live, you're going to be homeless, or are you going to actually like
no,
get the job done? Like, you got to do what you got to do. And
yeah.
at the end of the day, it's not like it's going to be forever,
Hmm.
but it's what can you do now?
No, for sure. That's it. No, that's a good point. I it's so it's like you're in my head. I definitely felt that too, because I was like, man, you look at the job you're doing, the responsibilities you had while you're serving, and then finally you're in the civil world. I need something on par or above
Mhm.
that to
Yep.
not feel like I'm going backwards, right? And
Yeah.
on top of that, the pay has to either be matching or above that, and I can't make anything less than what I was making, a month ago.
Mhm.
And that's not always the case, right? Some guys are really lucky. Some guys, they transition out and then they're able to find something that it pays them just as well as they were in the military or above
Mhm.
that, and perhaps they're get a plaque in front of they get a desk in an office or so whatever. It's like
Yeah.
they have this, they're put in this situation where they're happy, but a lot of times it's not the case, right? You have tons of service members that get out and have to work at McDonald's, like you were mentioning, or have to find whatever it is that they have to do to make some money on the side, whatever situation, because of the circumstance. And that's definitely the case for a lot of people. And what I try to tell people is that that's why you use your GI Bill, and that's why you make that, whatever it is,
Mhm.
the MHA, and get that monthly housing allowance so that you can kind of supplement your income. Because
Yep.
even if you're making, whatever it is, I think in California here, it's like $15 an hour for a McDonald's or something crazy like that. Even if you're making like an extra, like $800 every 2 weeks, if go to school full time, here in California, in my area, the for the GI Bill, the MHA is like $2,800. So you get $2,800 plus your income. Now you're making like whatever it is, seniorman pay or
Right.
something. And so
Right.
that'll make a big difference, right? And that's what we're talking about, is utilizing all the different benefits that you can use, and that's, I don't think, is talked about enough. And if it is, I think it's talked about a lot when you're about to get out, and then you don't hear about it because there's nobody, communicating that
Yeah.
stuff when you're out, right? You have to go out and
Yeah.
find it and see if it even
Yep.
exists.
Yeah,
And
you absolutely have to do all your own legwork when you're on
yeah,
the outside, and it's imperative that of that person who's separating to do the legwork while they're still inside.
yeah,
You know.
yeah, no, yeah. Because if you do the legwork beforehand, at least now, even if you don't need or qualify for that resource before you actually get out, it exists. So when you're at that, you can recall like, oh yeah, I have, or you take notes or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, I can use my GI Bill, and GI Bill I can benefit from all these things, or I can, oh I still can qualify for disability, and I can go and
Mhm.
go to the VA and qualify for disability. And there's like all these different things that if you didn't do your research prior to hand, you better do your research now. But it makes life a
Yeah.
lot easier if you had done your research
Oh
180
yeah.
days before you got out.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh
That's why
yeah.
they give you such a big window.
Oh yeah. And I mean, every single day, like you got to cherish it. You got to run through it. Like, I mean, I look back and, I was able to complete my bachelor's degree all under tuition's assistance. That's all paid for. So the
Oh,
GI
that's
Bill
awesome.
just sits. And,
Wow.
when I look at that, I'm just like, there were some times I didn't get to go out and go do whatever I want,
Yeah.
because I needed to get it done. And for me, I viewed that as a priority to be able to knock
Hmm.
that out. Other
Yeah.
people, that's, your own prerogative. But for me, it was, I was like, I should get this done and get this paid for because they're giving me $4,500 a month, or excuse me, a month, a year.
Yeah.
Why not use it? And I was
Yeah.
also able, on that same coin, to be able to get my airframe and power plant license all paid for as well.
Oh, wow.
From
With a
yeah, from
TA?
the Air Force.
Wow.
No, so from the Air Force Cool program,
Oh, Air
it's the
Force
Air
School.
Force credentialing program. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was able to apply for that, and they were able to. And that was also while I was in Guam, to where I viewed it as a priority to get it done because I didn't really think I was going to stay in any longer.
Yeah.
So I applied for it. I got it. I think it was like $2,700 for free for the whole class, like the crash
Wow.
course class. I went through all the other prerequisites, getting the FAA to sign off and getting, my 8610s or 8620s, I think it is, and getting all those completed to be able to go. But then in Guam, it was there were no crash courses or whatever to be able to go take your tests.
Yeah.
That I wanted to go to. So I ended up opting into where a bunch of other military veterans had gone, over in Lebanon, Tennessee, Baker School of Aeronautics. And so I footed the
Oh, cool.
bill and I paid to fly from Guam all the way out to Lebanon, Tennessee to study and go through the whole thing and get it knocked out. Like I viewed it
Wow.
as that big of an investment in
Yeah.
myself, that I needed to spend the $3,000, $4,000 to get from here in Guam to Tennessee, rental car, everything, the whole night, because military don't pay for that, which is fine. But leaving that place with an A&P was just like, it was literally just the cherry on top, because now that unlocks so many more doors, which, as me being out now working for Bombardier, I am learning that the A&P carries so much more weight than what is being than what's being shown or portrayed to the other mechanics, where they're just like,
Yeah.
yeah, you got it, congratulations, just a piece of paper. Because that's kind of how I felt with my bachelor's too. It was like, it's a piece of
Piece of
paper, and I
paper.
mean,
Yeah.
it still kind of is just a piece of paper.
Yeah, it
But the
is.
A&P it's an official certificate. Like, you are
Yeah.
certificated
So,
to
so what
work.
is an AFP again?
So an airframe and power plant license. So they're two
Okay.
separate licenses. You test for your airframe, which would involve, anything on an airplane like hydraulics, sheet metal, welding, tires, brakes, fire extinguishers, so on and so forth. And then you
Okay.
have the power plant, which is solely just the engine itself, turbines, certain types of fire suppressions that go within that, igniters, blah, blah, blah. So you have to test out of those two, and you also have a general test in between, which is just basic arithmetic, which is easy. But you got to knock those two out, and once you pass that, you got to go through an oral and practical, which you go to an examiner, and you talk, and he reads questions off, and you got to know these questions off the top of your head, and
Mm.
that's actually pretty dang challenging when you're trying to do that. And then
Yeah.
and then the practical is just all the hands-on stuff, and that was super easy. Because I'm a very hands-on kind of person anyway. So
Yeah. So it doesn't sound like you really waited necessarily last minute to get all these things done. I mean, you got your bachelor's degree before you got out, and then with
mhm.
the ANP, that was after the fact. This was more recent that you did that.
Yeah, the A&P I accomplished in 2020.
2020. So two. Oh
Mhm.
wow. So 2 years ago. Yeah. And
Mhm.
so
So
you had some preparation. You did some homework
yeah,
before you
yeah.
left. Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
mean, my wife can definitely attest to it. That's all I do. It's continual research. What's the next thing? Like, I have two board, like, in my office. I have two big dream boards, and it's,
yeah.
one is, what do I need to do in my job to be able to make myself more marketable, more kind of work experience, networking, career progression type moves, because in the
Yeah.
civilian world, it's all blurred out.
Networking.
It's kind of
Yeah.
just whatever, and it's. But on the
Yeah.
other side of that board, it's what do we need to do as a family to think about over the next year, because now the new year, new me, all that stuff coming up. It's just, yeah. So
Yeah. No, I totally get you. Yeah, for sure. I don't necessarily have like a dream. Although I should have like a board of some sort. But I do keep like images in my phone, right, where you just kind of and notes and things like that. But yeah, that's awesome. So you did your preparation beforehand, and that's a big. I mean, if you're going to take away anything from this video, it's that preparation, right? Preparing
Yeah.
for that transition, getting out. I didn't necessarily do all that. I ended up getting my associate's degree, but not my bachelor's beforehand. You know, some of the things that you got your, certification before you got out. Me being a financial, paraplanner and becoming a financial advisor, you need to get your Series 65 license, which allows you to give advice for fees and things like that. I'm still working on that currently, right? And I'm still working on my bachelor's degree. And so it's a little harder for somebody. It's definitely smarter to get all that done beforehand than wait until after the fact, because it is a lot harder because you feel a little bit more pressure when you're out and doing all that versus having all that already and then getting out and then being like, okay, now I'm marketable. Now I can kind of figure out what I need to go and places I'm actually interested in, and not just giving me an opportunity. And so that's a big one. And so when you started your SkillBridge program, did you how did that work? Did you go on the DoD SkillBridge website and they were there already, or did you go ahead and contact somebody, get a request form to get them on the website, or how did that work?
So for the SkillBridge, I was looking at a place called Prey Aviation, and they're actually out here in Kansas. They're just east, about 45 minutes over in Augusta. And so I was already looking at going to them prior, or when I was getting ready to get out in Guam. But then I found out we were going to McConnell, which is in Wichita, ironically enough. So it was going to work out anyway that I was going to try and go for Prey, and I'd already contacted them and stuff. So I ended up PCS in here, and then when I went into the whole SkillBridge, it was a piece of cake because they take all sorts of SkillBridge people for all their flight lessons, or people that are trained to become pilots. Then they also have a mechanic side as well, which is what I decided. I really wanted to do the flight lessons, but I was able to jump in the mechanics and I guess be more of an asset for them at that time. Because with me being a sheet metalist, those are more, or I should say this, a good sheet metalist is more sought after than just a standard one. So being able to get in there and they had a lot of airplanes that had a lot of damage on them. Flight schools are really rough on airplanes. So there's surprisingly a lot of structural damage, and it's really expensive for structural. So I was able to step in there and kind of on that free paycheck for them. So they were all about it. They were super happy. They were saving all sorts of money while I was out there knocking them out.
How long were you there for?
So I was there for 87 days. I think it was 87 or 88 days. I was there for just under 3 months. It wasn't long, but that was because I also still had 75 days of terminal to burn up. So and that was because I was on Guam. And so, not often do you leave Guam if you're ready to spend an arm and a leg just to leave the island.
Yeah. And this is a lot off topic, but for that travel though, that obviously was fully reimbursed, right? For you to leave, and then you already filed your voucher for you leaving Guam, finally going on SkillBridge and all that stuff when you filed that separation voucher.
So since I PCS to McConnell first, it was already in Wichita. So I was able. I just never left. I just never needed to fill out a voucher. My wife, she's finance, so I was just like, hey, you just tell me what I need to sign and where do I need to sign. And
the benefits of being married to a finance person,
Correct, absolutely. Number one advice for takeaway from this video: marry a finance person.
Marry a finance person or be best friends with a finance person. Your life will be a lot easier in the military. So. Yeah. And that'll be another topic for another video, but because you can spend all day talking about that.
Yeah, but in that SkillBridge, I was just there until I think it was mid June. But during that time, they're like Matthew Praise, their owner, and really, really kind people out there, and they allowed me a lot of flexibility to be able to get into job interviews. They also offered me a job as well to be able to continue on past the SkillBridge to start working for them, which was really cool. And but I ended up getting job offers from Spirit, Bombardier, and
cool,
and then also Prey Aviation. Oh, and Textron, another one. But I ultimately ended up going with Bombardier because I viewed a lot of, they had a lot more growth. They offered me a good position as a supervisor out there. So, which is proving to be more of a stressful job. But when, you know, you're in the military, it's always stressful all the time, nonstop. So
Yeah.
for me, it was just, it's fine. It's fine for me. You know, a lot of times they're very kind out there. They're like, "Are you okay? You know, is everything good? Is there anything you need? My boss is awesome. Do you need anything? Are you sure you're okay?" And I'm like, "I promise you I'm fine. I promise I'm fine." I'm so used to other crazy pandemonium, or, you know, like there's a lost tool or you're about to leave and they're like, "Hey, congratulations. We're on
Yeah.
exercise now. I need you guys to work 12s through the weekend nonstop." And you're like, there goes all my plans. So all leave has been canceled. And you're like,
Oh, I
awesome.
totally understand that.
Off I go.
Yeah. You know, it's funny you mentioned with the whole schedule thing. That was obviously part of the topic. One of the topics that I hit on in a previous video was the difference. Well, in this video that I actually just recorded that I'm about to post, the difference between the topic was fearing of losing your job in the civilian world versus the military, and and somewhere along the lines in that video, I kind of mentioned shoot, I think we only have 10 minutes here.
No, you're fine.
Another advice, we have to upgrade the Zoom to Pro. Anyways, I'll get into that story in a future video. But so with your SkillBridge program, did you take anything away from that as far as, like, you know, on the job training?
Yeah, absolutely. So my the AMPIA, or like the head mechanic out there, gave me a lot of advice, you know, to kind of how to think, because he was in his mid 50s. He had a lot of experience and a lot of wealth to really spread out, and, you know, really kind of telling me, you know, like, "Hey, you know, be careful. This is some things you need to look at. Your AMP really means a lot. You know, it means a lot more than what you think. And, you know, always be on time, always be about, you know, the standard stuff that, you know, the military is always like, you will be here 15 minutes early." So,
Ground
yeah,
time
so a
relay
lot
type
of,
of thing.
yeah, exactly. So, you know, a lot of times, you know, I think a lot of the military standards and values and cores, you know, I thought I was leaving the military, you know, to get away from a lot more of that structure and stuff. And then I realized that I use that structure twice as much now in this current job, you know, because it's not, you know, civilian world may not be, it isn't quite as structured as the military, but some of those areas require that kind of structure where you're like, "Oh, I can use this here. Oh, I could use that there," you know?
Yeah, I imagine that's especially true for your career field as well, though, right? Because I noticed a big shift in my job right now, or that I was doing during my SkillBridge program. It was very like, "Oh, you're going to come in 8:30, 9. Okay, yeah, just let us know." Like, it was kind of very just nonchalant and whatever. And even when I got the job offer, it was like, "Can you at least do like 6 hours a day or something like that, and you can go to school?" It was very much like, no, like in the military, it's like, "No, you're here at 7:30, and then, you know, you might be able to leave at 4:30, but that's not necessarily the case. You know, you might have to stay till 7." And it's like, oh my gosh. And so, anyways, that's cool, and that's very true. The whole structure thing, it's definitely it's something that will never, unless you were a D-bag airman, it'll never leave your side. Even when you transition, you'll just kind of have that in you, I think. And I think that's true for you for sure. And then so when you finished that, did you not want to work there anymore? Did they give you a job offer?
It wasn't that I didn't want to work there. Like, I didn't think it was bad working there at all, especially for the amount of work that I was doing. Just a lot of oil changes and stuff. It was pretty just remedial. But it was when I had gotten the job offer from Spirit, I was thinking about them because they offered me a fabrication manager position, which would have been cool to get into. But when Bombardier really came through and offered, it was I had a way better vibe and a way better feel for that kind of company to move in that area, you know. And I mean, compensation wise, you know, it was much better than what a flight school could offer, you know. And I mean, and then, like I said, you know, they completely understood that. But going to Bombardier, you know, seeing this company starting to turn around, and, you know, they're paying down a lot of debt, and they're really trying to become something great, or greater than what they once were. And I'm all aboard on the change and really trying to grow with a company, you know. You know, the military whole accelerate, change, or lose, and I'm like, "Oh, great." You know, I'd rather be with a company who's actually making
changing.
change and is active. And and I already love airplanes. I absolutely
Yeah.
love
Are
aviation.
they
I
a
can
big
never get away
company?
from it.
I'm not quite
Yeah, they're
familiar.
actually a massive
Really
company. So
massive
Bombardier is
company.
a huge company. So they're
Yeah.
based out of Canada, and they used to make like snowmobiles and augers and all sorts of cool stuff, and airplanes. Well, they solely sold off all the other stuff and really focus on just airplanes, or excuse me, just
Okay.
on corporate airplanes, business
Okay.
jets.
Oh wow. Yeah. So they're
So
making some
they
revenue.
do still have some yeah, absolutely. So they still have some airplanes that are out there that they sold to Mitsubishi.
Oh,
And
cool.
I mean, and going in further into that, it's more of an av geek type thing. So we'll save your listeners of that. But yeah, so they pretty much just focus on just their current fleet, which are Globals, which is our biggest one.
Okay.
Challengers, it's a kind of our medium size, and then you also have Learjet. They also bought that up as well. And so
Oh
I
wow.
work in the Learjet side, so I deal with a lot of smaller airplanes, and yeah, I mean, man, Learjet is it's a crazy airplane. It's really really cool. Like the whole idea behind it, they wanted to make it like a fighter jet, and I
Yeah.
mean it flies like a fighter jet. It flies
Wow.
like one.
And that's so awesome that you found something that, I mean, not a lot of people can go from the military, do what they were doing in the military, and do something similar or remotely similar to what they were doing while they were in, right? A lot of people, it's not
Yeah,
applicable, whatever they were doing. And then,
yeah,
maybe they don't want to do what they were doing, right? I know a lot of people that are maintainers or whatever, that didn't what didn't turn out to be whatever they thought it was going to be, and then by like year 1, 2, or 3 they figure out, I want to do something else, right?
right.
They ended up going from being security forces and then figuring out, oh, you know what, I want to be an admin person or
Yeah,
something.
absolutely.
But for you ended up picking something that was just the right fit.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
so
yeah,
that
I
was
really.
preparation. That's definitely, that's you prepared prior for you joining, figuring out what you wanted to do, and that's what I wanted to do,
Yeah.
right? And then you stuck to your guns and then kept on, and that's a good lesson too, in this whole thing, right? Is one, your preparation, you prepared. Two, figuring out what you actually wanted to do in the military so that you could apply it to something else once you got out.
Mm-hmm.
And then three, once you know what you're going to do, create that roadmap. And so that transitionary phase that I'm currently going through, and you kind of went through, you're kind of going through still, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That part of your career is, it's a lot easier to chew, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to cut the video kind of shorter, but we only have a couple more minutes. But now that you're done, I mean, in a nutshell, what kind of advice do you have to say to people who are currently transitioning, or maybe have just transitioned and maybe need little word of wisdom?
Really keep your head up, and the light at the end of the tunnel is really there. It's not really a train as long as you plan for it. That's the biggest thing. There are resources out there. Use your VA. There are there are even like veteran forward post setups where you can go connect with other veterans. You're not alone. A lot of things that you're going to feel when you're separating, it's going to feel really overwhelming. It really
Yeah.
is. And you just have to keep every single day, just one more day, take it one day at a time. You're going to make it to the end. Everything is going to be okay.
No, yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, we all kind of know we may not have the same situation, but we all relate at some level
Mm-hmm.
and are
Yeah.
kind of going through similar things especially at that point in your career when it's all over and you're having to move on and do something else.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as grandiose as a lot of people might make it seem. It's pretty stressful, and just know, like, that's why this channel's here, and that's why there's tons of other resources and other channels and other things that you can kind of go to for insight and information and connection. And to top it off, are you kind of in the social media space? Are you doing things like that, or?
So I've kind of given more thought to it. I used to have a podcast, and I've had a couple people reach out actually just like 2 months ago that were like, "Hey, when are you going to start this up again?" Like, so I don't know. I kind of thought about it, and but well, who knows? I mean, there's nothing really to shout out on that one. So
okay, well, let me know. Maybe we can do a future video when you're when you're ready to do all that.
Yeah, maybe get back into it a little further. Yeah. So
talk about aeronautical stuff.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, Steve, for having me on here. It was awesome.
I appreciate your time for sure. And hopefully we can do this in the future. All right.
Yeah, definitely. Just let me know.
All right. Thank you, brother.
All right. Bye.